What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for the Mandalorian Season 2. This is Episode 8 in the season finale. With me, as always, my Blue Spade.
The episode starts off. We have, Slave 1 pursuing an Imperial shuttle with Dr. Pershing in it. And, of course, the shuttle, of course, gets disabled by Slave 1. And so it gets boarded by both Mando and Cara Dune, which they do end up taking over the ship. Of course, one of the Imperial pilots take Pershing hostage, and then it pretty much confirms what Dr. Pershing is, that he is a cloning scientist, which many people have speculated due to his patch that he wears on the side, which many people pointed out, it was based off of Camino.
The one Imperial officer takes him hostage, and then Cara Dune basically tries to talk him down, and we learned that the guy taking him hostage was apparently on board the Death Star during the destruction of Alderaan, and he kind of tries to antagonize her about, because apparently, as we know, Cara Dune is from Alderaan originally, so he basically tries to upset her by talking about Alderaan, and then we kind of figured she would, just either be able to just shoot the guy before he killed the doctor, of course, which pretty much happens. She does get pissed enough, but she manages to shoot him.
Yeah, shooting him, which I'm not shooting him in the freaking face with a blaster, which we never seen before. I mean, we've seen headshots on stormtroopers, but literally on point blank on someone's face like that. It was insane. So the next scene, we see another scene where both Boba Fett and Mando travel to a planet where we see them they end up finding both Bo-Katan and one of her other Mandalorian associates, Koska Reeves, at a cantina. And
I was also wondering, did they know that Bo-Katan was going to be there before? Were they tracking her down before they got there?
Honestly, I wasn't really sure how Mando kept in contact with Bo-Katan, or whether he did at all. Yeah. Or maybe
that's what I was kind of curious, because I don't remember them actually saying how they ended up finding her.
I mean, they had to get some kind of information of how they found her in the first place, but then anyway, Mando, of course, goes to Bo-Katan, asking her for help, and tells her, that they know where they can find Moff Gideon and where he's holding the Darksaber, which of course interests Bo-Katan, because she wants to take the Darksaber for herself, because the reason why is the Darksaber holds power that whoever wields it can rule Mandalore. And she says that she needs to be the one to face Moff Gideon and take it for herself. And then there's also
apparently the Darksaber needs to be won in combat,
which we'll explain later. But of course there is a bit of a heated conversation between Bo-Katan, Reeves, and Boba Fett, explaining that that he's not a Mandalorian and he's a disgrace to his heritage. And then of course Boba Fett doesn't take too kindly to this, and Bo-Katan also points out that he's also a clone, and she's heard his voice many times over. For those that watched the Clone Wars, she fought alongside the clones and fought against them at the same time.
So she has some history with Boba Fett?
Well, not with Boba Fett, but she, if you watch the series finale of the Clone Wars, she fought alongside Ahsoka with the Clone Republic army. So she's met because all the clones are clones of Jango Fett. So is Boba. So I would this is the first time Boba Fett and Bo-Katan have met each other, but this isn't the first time Bo-Katan has met another clone of Jango Fett's.
Okay.
Yeah, but
there basically is sort of a bit of a confrontation between I don't know this character's name, this woman and Boba Fett, where I think like you said, I think
her name is Koska.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, they fight for a bit, but it doesn't, like, they almost kind of kill it. It seems like they're almost about to like kill each other before Bo-Katan like breaks it up. Yeah. So it doesn't really. I guess it just establishes that they're not necessarily on good terms, I suppose.
No, it's just.
But they basically have to work together.
Yeah. So they eventually they do end up forming a plan on how to infiltrate the ship. So their plan is to use the shuttle they apprehended and then use the Slave One to pursue them in order to get into the ship. And then of course Dr. Pershing, who they ended up capturing, is surprisingly willing enough to help them out, on how to infiltrate the ship and tell them about the Dark Troopers and how.
I was honestly expecting him to backstab them at some point during the episode, but surprisingly, it doesn't really.
I mean, he didn't stop Mando from taking the child back when he saved him back in season 1. So I don't know what
True.
I don't know much about Dr. Pershing because
Yeah, that's the. Yeah, I mean, he is a bit of a mysterious character just because we don't really know too much about him. Maybe they could expand on that in future seasons, but
we don't know what exactly he was trying to experiment on or what the Empire has been doing.
Yeah, we don't really have all the details about what they were doing, and I guess we'll either learn that from Gideon or from him later in future seasons. Possibly.
So they eventually start on their plan. So they have Slave One chasing down the Imperial shuttle with Bo-Katan, Casca, Fennec, Dune, and Mando all in the ship. And then, of course, they make it look like it's like the shuttle's being attacked by Slave One. So they have TIE fighters launching through a launch tube at the center of the ship. And then they eventually, crash land into the center of the ship itself. And then pretty much I guess the next 10 minutes of the episode, which is them shooting down the stormtroopers throughout the entire ship.
Yeah.
And
So it's they pretty much just shoot through all the stormtroopers. I guess that's one thing I kind of I kind of wish the stormtroopers actually would have given them a little bit more trouble, because they sort of easily just wipe the floor with all the stormtroopers. The stormtroopers just really are not, and I guess you could make the argument they never were all that intimidating or good at supposedly good at shooting anything, but they just kind of make quick work.
Well, the one thing that were intimidating were the Dark Troopers.
Yeah, the Dark Troopers at least kind of make up for it, because and that is one thing I was kind of hoping they would do in this episode, because we haven't actually seen the Dark Troopers do anything aside from kidnap Grogu. So in this episode we actually get to see them do something. The only thing I will say I'm still a little bit disappointed with was that they kind of changed the design of the Dark Troopers, because in Dark Forces the Dark Troopers are a little bit more bulky with the way they look, but so they kind of redesigned them a little bit, but they look okay. They basically look kind of like a mix, sort of like the Cylons, I guess you'd say, from Battlestar Galactica. They kind of look a little bit similar to that. And the weapons they use too, they just kind of use a standard blaster. The Dark Troopers in the game do not use blasters, so I was a little bit surprised by that. In the game they use they use different weapons than blasters. It's like new weapons they use, or I don't know what you would call them.
I remember that they have rocket blasters on their shoulders, but I guess they kind of dumbed them down a bit, but they still look intimidating.
There's also two different varieties. There's another variety of Dark Trooper as well, which are the ones with the blades. We didn't see those at all either, so but I mean, I guess I'm fine with what we got from the Dark Troopers. I just kind of, like I said, I just kind of wish they were a little bit more accurate to how they were in the game, but for the most part I think they were intimidating enough, because they really did kind of play up how much of a threat the Dark Troopers were, at least later on. Well, when they first showed them in the episode, and later on in the episode too.
Yeah, and of course, eventually Mando. He's trying to make it to the detention area, but along the way he does. He makes it to where the Dark Troopers are being held, and he sees them. They're about to walk out, and then he tries to seal them off. But unfortunately, one breaks through, and he literally has trouble trying to beat that thing by himself. Like one literally just grabs him. Like I thought that one Dark Trooper was gonna break his arm or something like that, but
I like how he like tried to fry the Dark Trooper with his flamethrower attachment, and the Dark Trooper just had no reaction. He's just like, that's cute, and he just throws him around some more.
Well, but that one scene where like the Dark Trooper just repeatedly punched him in the helmet over and over again. I thought his helmet was gonna.
I thought his helmet was actually gonna break. Honestly, like I was surprised. I guess it just speaks to how strong the Beskar armor really is, that it just didn't break at all. Even after the Dark Trooper just repeatedly punched him in the face.
I mean, it almost had like a lot of Terminator vibes when I saw that, including.
That is something else they reminded me of.
And then eventually, like fortunately, like the Dark Trooper ends up tossing him to where he dropped his spear, so he ends up using it to destroy the thing. So, but of course, like the other Dark Troopers are trying to punch their way out of the door they're trapped in, and then he and then eventually like activates the airlock to send them off into space, which I thought like I didn't think like they were gonna be defeated that easily, because if you remember they have jetpacks, so they can easily like get back into the ship whenever they want, but along the way Katan, Casca, Fennec, and Dune eventually fight their way toward the command center, and then they pretty much kill everyone in there, but they can't find Gideon. So, so what happens is like Mando eventually makes it to the detention center, kills off the two stormtroopers guarding the door, and he of course finds Gideon taking Grogu hostage with his Darksaber turned on.
Yeah, he basically tries to like make a deal with Gideon. He's just like, I'm only here for the child, or for the child. Gideon is pretty much like, I already have what I want from him. I don't need him anymore. So, they kind of like, they make they act like he's gonna make the exchange. Of course, we all know he's not gonna keep his word. Like he like immediately after they make the exchange, he's gonna turn around and try to hit it. Or, try to do
I mean, honestly, I really like Giancarlo's acting in this scene in particular, because he plays off like as like a calculating like villain, like that line where he says like, assume that I know everything, and he just accurately predicts like who Mando's with and what exactly happened in the bridge, and also the fact that he knows that Mando used his Whistling Bird's gauntlet shooter against that one Dark Trooper he was trying to fight off.
Yeah, because he said you already used it, so you can't use it again. So like, even though Gideon's not like a Jedi or anything like that, he's still like a really intimidating villain without having to be some kind of a Sith or anything like that. He's just he's more or less just a guy. He just happens to be really cunning, and he has possession, of course, of the Darksaber. It's kind of like how even like how people think about Thrawn. Like, Thrawn is not a Jedi either. He's just a really good villain, like because he's so manipulative and strategic. And he knows exactly what he's doing, and that's why people love him so much. Like, he doesn't necessarily have to be like a dark side Jedi, but he's still a good villain regardless. But that's what I liked about Moff Gideon's character is he's he didn't need to be a Sith Jedi or anything like that. He just that's all it really took, is just for him to have embrace these traits of a villain, which is being cunning and manipulative and just kind of trying to be like 2 steps ahead all the time, which is kind of how his character was. So that's what I really liked. And I just really also like the casting as well, because Giancarlo Esposito, like, he's of course everybody knows him from Breaking Bad, and he was pretty much the standout as like one of the best things about that show, to be honest, like in terms of villains. And it seems like he's usually cast in a villain role, but he just plays that role so well. Like, every time he's cast in a show as a villain, like, he's just it's probably like one of the best things about the show, because he just works so well as a villain. I don't know if I've honestly ever seen him like cast as like a good guy as from what I've seen of him. He's usually
he's mostly the villain, like you said. I mean, I also remember him playing the villain role in what was it, the Amazon show called The Boys.
Yeah, he's a villain.
Yeah. Too. So after that, Mando of course tries to pick up Grogu, but of course, like you said, Gideon doesn't keep his word, and he starts attacking Mando with his Darksaber. Fortunately, Din does still have that Beskar spear that he carried along with him, so it leads into like a pretty intense, like I would say, duel between the two with both the spear and the Darksaber.
Yeah, this was actually a really good fight. Din Djarin was kind of on the defense for a lot of it too, because he was just kind of like, Gideon had the Darksaber, and he couldn't really use the spear, the spear for too long to just defend himself, because he could tell like the spear, even though it was like a Beskar spear, it looked like it was being like, you could tell like the Darksaber was like kind of looked like it almost could have burned through it or something.
Which I was a little bit surprised, because didn't burn through when Ahsoka was fighting off the magistrate against her like a few episodes ago.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Like, I don't know, maybe they'll explain it, like maybe the Darksaber just for whatever reason is I don't know, like is more effective than a lightsaber, but I don't know how. Like, that's the only thing I'm a little bit confused about. Like, how would the Darksaber be able to actually be burn through it when a lightsaber couldn't?
But eventually, I was surprised on how effective Mando was with that spear. Like, just like how he used it in particular. Then I remembered that Pedro Pascal played a character that effectively used a spear in Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Damn, what was his name? I forgot what his name was, but I know what character you're talking about. Like, he was. Yeah, it's funny because he did have a spear. He did use a spear as his like primary weapon in that show.
Yeah. So eventually, Mando does eventually best him, and then in the process, because he beat Gideon for the Darksaber, Mando is the official owner of the Darksaber himself, which of course leads into another scene, which of course Bo-Katan is not happy with. Not entirely pleased that Mando is now the rightful owner of the Darksaber now.
Yeah, and Gideon, of course, is kind of getting a kick out of this because, like, Din doesn't really seem to know the rules of it because he thinks he can just hand it over to her. And, apparently it's not that simple. She basically needs to earn the Darksaber through, like, combat. She needs to beat him in order to actually, like, be able to rightfully, like, possess the Darksaber.
And of course, Din tries to try to yield and just give it to her, but like Gideon says, it doesn't work that way. Like, it's not that the Darksaber has power; it's the power of its story, which is of its importance. And
and people speculate like Bo-Katan wouldn't have taken it anyway because she'd be too prideful to just take the Darksaber.
Well, okay, here's the problem I have with this scene, because I remember back in Rebels that Sabine Wren had possession of the Darksaber, and then by the end of that particular story arc, she willingly gave the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, and she accepted it without fighting each other. There's one thing that Gideon did say, like, if Bo-Katan were to take the Darksaber again, then she would be seen as an illegitimate ruler. So that made me believe, like, if, like, back when she accepted the Darksaber back in Star Wars Rebels, maybe like most Mandalorians didn't see her as a legitimate ruler, meaning that she wasn't able to unite all the Mandalorians to fight against the Empire, which led to the Mandos falling in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's something they'll address later on.
Yeah.
If because it does kind of seem like it could be a bit of a plot.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like, we don't get to see the resolution to that, of that particular storyline. But unfortunately, like, the Darksabers do eventually come back after being airlocked through the doors.
Yeah. They, of course, like, we kind of expected that to happen, but yeah, the Dark Troopers do end up showing up again, and they all kind of march perfectly in like single file it's kind of to where they're all kind of at the deck or the control room, and they try to break through, or they're kind of trying to literally punch through the door to break in, and they're pretty much like they pretty much realize they're all screwed. Like I mean, I don't think even with the Beskar spear, like Din would be able to fight all of those off, because there's quite a few.
I mean, he also has a Darksaber too, which.
Yeah, sure he does. It would have been cool. I will say it would have been kind of cool to maybe have seen him use the Darksaber to fight them off. That would have been interesting, but of course that's not what happens. Because we also know there's from the what was it? Well, from the one episode where Grogu contacts the Jedi, there is going to probably be a Jedi that shows up, and sure enough, that's what ends up happening. Like right when they're about to be slaughtered by the Dark Troopers, we see that there is a single X-wing that comes in through the hangar bay, and there's only one X-wing, no other ones, so it's one person, and the X-wing may or may not have given it away for some people. I know, like, before I watched this episode, like, I kind of already got spoiled. But yeah, you see the X-wing show up, and you see, like, somebody step out, and you also see, I think before he does anything, you could also see his hand. The hand's a giveaway as well, because, if he only has one robotic hand. But then you also see him ignite his lightsaber in the screen. So you already know.
Yeah, and like, well, we initially see him like in security cams, but then like it transitions back to who the Jedi is, and it's officially confirmed that it is Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, this was one of the possibilities of people who I thought would show up. I thought they would play it safe, to be honest. I thought it was going to be like a Filoni character. It was probably going to be like Ezra or something, but or just somebody else like Cal. Possibly, just one of the characters, that more recent characters. But it being Luke did definitely take me by surprise. I didn't totally discount the idea that Luke could show up, but I didn't think it was that possible, to be honest, just because of all the shenanigans, as we know, that's been happening behind the scenes with the Star Wars franchise. I felt like it would be kind of a big move to actually have him show up, but yeah, he shows up. So
he just like basically just takes down every single Dark Trooper he came across so easily.
Oh, it was a beautiful scene. Like, yeah, he just uses the Force. He uses the lightsaber fighting style we've known that he's used in the original trilogy, and it looks like it's basically just a more perfected version of like what he could do before in the original trilogy. And yeah, he just kind of just slaughters, like just goes through all the Dark Troopers, takes them all down. It just looks incredible. Like, he uses Force push. He crushes one of them with the Force. That was like one of the best parts, is just to see him just use Force crush on that one Dark Trooper.
There's one thing that did happen while Luke was on his way to the bridge, was that Gideon tries to pull a fast one and then shoot Bo-Katan.
Oh yeah,
but unfortunately, like, he can't shoot through like the Beskar armor, and he also tried to shoot Grogu as well, but thankfully Din manages to come in and block the blast, and
then when that fails, he tries to kill
but
himself.
Then Dune stops him from killing himself and then just knocks him out.
For a second I thought he would actually succeed in killing himself. Like, I did. I was actually surprised they managed to stop him, to be honest. Like, I thought he would die, and we wouldn't, we would have to like find out the hard way what it was he was trying to do. But I don't think we're at the same time, even though he's still, I will say, yeah, he's still alive by the end of this episode. Like, do you think he's going to actually like tell them like, what he was up to, and like what his who he's maybe like answering to, like what he's trying to do? Like, I don't think he's going to. Unless they use like a Jedi mind trick or some kind of.
I don't know. I think really Gideon is gonna try to pull another fast one on them, even if he gets captured, because he's one of the more calculating villains we've seen in in Star Wars history. I think like maybe in another show, maybe possibly Rangers of the New Republic, or maybe another season of The Mandalorian, that he might throw in like subtle hints at what he might be planning, and then maybe plan his escape later.
Yeah. I think Gideon's still going to be a recurring character throughout Mandalorian and some of these other shows too.
So, but yeah, shortly afterwards, Luke does eventually make it to the bridge and then just kill off the remaining Dark Troopers in his way. And then of course, Mando opens the door for him, and we finally see Luke's face, which of course confirms my suspicions that it is, a CG imposed face over another guy.
Yeah, I actually didn't pick up on this when I first saw it. I seriously thought it was just somebody that had been recast as Luke. Because I did look it up, and there is somebody playing him, but it's just the person, who's behind the CG face. So they're using the CG face of young Mark Hamill, and they're using, of course, a new actor playing him, but it's not actually.
I mean, what's funny is at the end credits scene is when you see the list of the cast, it's confirmed it's confirmed Mark Hamill played him, and it's how? Because he doesn't sound like him for one thing, because of but how old he sounds.
I mean, the guy at least tries to. I will say, I think he does at least act like Luke Skywalker. He does. It does definitely remind me of Luke from the original trilogy. And I think he did his best to at least try to sound like Mark Hamill. But you can kind of tell, it's not really Mark Hamill. But at least they tried. He tried to sound as close to Mark Hamill as I guess.
Well, okay, because
and he doesn't really say that much either.
But the guy, it's confirmed that Mark Hamill did voice this character, voice himself.
Oh, okay.
And I'm curious to how.
So he does the voice, and he does, but he's not really doing
he's not
face. So
he's not physically there, but he voiced him.
Yeah.
But which leads me to believe that how the hell they did it, because as we know, when we saw Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, we know how old he sounds right now compared to how he sounded back.
I'm surprised if that's actually him. I mean, I seriously couldn't tell. It sounded, that's. I'm actually surprised that was actually him voicing.
Unless they used some kind of special voice filter to make him sound a little bit younger, which
possible. I will say I'm not really a fan of how Disney is basically doing the CG versions of younger versions of the original cast. This is basically similar to what they did with Princess Leia in Rogue One, where they had and also Tarkin too, where they had CG versions of the actors, or what do they? I don't know what you would call what the technology they use, but they try to basically use these kind of CG effects.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what. It's led me to think about a lot of the questionable stuff that Disney's been doing a lot about the recent projects, and implementing older cast characters into these movies or shows in particular. Also,
if it were me, that's the only part of Luke showing up again that I was a little bit disappointed with, was just the CG aspect, them just using young CG Mark Hamill. I'm not really too much of it. Like I said, I'm not too much of a fan of this method. I understand why they would want to use it, but I really feel like it would just be better, in my opinion, to just recast it with somebody who at least resembles a young Mark Hamill, because it feels more natural, at least. Than just using CG to bring give us a young version of that actor. I would prefer if they just maybe just gave us an actual actor, and not some CG version of the younger actor or whatever. I just feel like that would have been better. It would have been a little bit more convincing in a way. It's it's a real person.
Yeah,
technically, not just.
But
CG.
Anyway, so Luke eventually asked Grogu to come with him, and of course Din tells him that he doesn't want to go with you. So, but Luke says that he wants your permission to go, and then points out that he needs to train Grogu to master his abilities, because that's pretty much like his mission. Because if Grogu Grogu is gifted with the Force, but he needs proper training to refine his abilities much better. So so Din of course reluctantly tells Grogu that that he needs to go with Luke, and then he makes the promise that they will see each other again. And this of course leads into a touching scene between the two, and in which we see Mando finally taking off his helmet and letting Grogu see his face for the first time.
Yeah, because people have pointed out that Grogu has been interested in before, has shown signs that he wanted to see Din's face underneath his helmet. So he finally actually gets to see what his face looks like. And I thought it was a good idea to actually, and it made sense too that he would do something like that, especially considering what we saw in the last episode. It felt like that was kind of necessary to have this scene happen, for this scene to happen, that they sort of had Din kind of sort of start breaking some of the rules he set for himself, with that conversation that he had
with Bo-Katan about
with Bill.
Oh yeah, that one specifically. Yeah, because he was really adopted into the Mandalorian culture, and then the group that he was with is a more religious cult in which they're not allowed to take off their helmets, but regular Mandalorians like Bo-Katan and Casca are allowed to take off their helmets from time to time. So I guess Din is apparently going to adopt that sort of culture, that sort of culture from now on, I guess.
Oh, I also found it interesting. I didn't think about this too, but somebody basically pointed out how this was a bit similar to that scene from Return of the Jedi, where after when Vader was about to die, Luke was like, "Let me look upon your face," and it kind of reminded them of that. And I have to wonder if that's kind of what they were. It was sort of like a callback.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was definitely a lot of callbacks in this episode in particular. We can point out that with Luke destroying the Dark Troopers was similar to the dark hallway scene with Vader killing all the rebels in Rogue One.
Yeah, people pointed that out too, how it was similar to that. And also too, it's also interesting how it's this time around Luke is the one training training one of Yoda's species, where in the original trilogy it was Yoda training him. So I found that a little bit funny too.
Yeah,
about how he's kind of training how he's training.
Yeah.
Yoda.
And so of course they do say their final goodbyes, and then Skywalker takes Grogu along with them, and that's pretty much.
We get R2.
Oh yeah, R2 also shows up, which is also another nice moment between all of them, and of course R2.
And somebody pointed out too that Grogu seemed to kind of be more comfortable with Luke taking him after seeing R2 or something, R2 showing up kind of made him feel more at ease, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean it was still a nice moment, seeing R2 again.
I was hoping C-3PO would come in after
I don't think so. Fitting them on one X-wing, that's not possible.
True.
Yeah, but it was nice to see R2 they bring in R2 for the first time into the show. I mean, as a nice cameo role. So they do end up saying their final goodbyes, and that leads to a nice ending shot between between Din and the others, alongside Luke, Grogu, and R2-D2 leaving in the elevator on the other side.
Yeah. This. I mean, really, this whole thing, the whole part with Luke was pretty much everything. Well, a big part of what I wanted to happen, or what I wanted to see in the sequel trilogy. So I at least finally got sort of what I wanted from, what the sequels didn't really give me, was actually, Luke actually coming back and being a badass for once, which, didn't really get that from the sequels. So I'm fine. At least we finally got it to some extent. I'm just, like I said, I'm just hoping that maybe he'll either show up again just in some capacity in one of the other series, or he eventually gets his own series. I'd be fine with either one. But I think like with they might have used this to kind of really also gauge people's reaction and see how willing they were to, I guess, excited they would be to see, Luke again.
I mean, personally,
but, I mean, they had to have known that everybody would obviously love to see Luke Skywalker again. I think it's really just the method in which they brought him back that's sort of in question, honestly. Because I think if they were to, I still think people would be kind of, divided on how they feel about, like, if they did recast Luke. But I think more people would probably be, okay with them doing that. Because, I mean, it's understandable why they would do it.
I mean, it takes a lot of resources just to constantly have a CG face-looking Luke.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to continue to do that. I don't think they should do that if they ever bring him in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so even though that was the end of the episode, we still had, like, one more post-credit scene at the end, which like we never ever see, like, in any Star Wars film, is like a post-credit scene.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of starting to do some of the put some of the MCU elements into some of these Star Wars shows.
I mean, yeah, this is their
but I didn't really mind that there's a post-credit scene. I think that's a good idea.
So like what we see is, like, we're back on Tatooine and we see, like, a familiar place back in Jabba's palace, and then who we see, like, in there is, like, we see Bib Fortuna, who was one of Jabba the Hutt's Twi'lek lieutenants back in Return of the Jedi. Honestly, I thought he was dead back in episode 6, but
so was he on, like, on the barge or whatever, like when they were the sail barge, like with Jabba and the rest of them, like, or was he back in the palace?
He was on the sail barge, okay. And then
so yeah, he I don't know how he survived. Yeah, he should be dead,
but he's taken over Jabba's place. He's a lot fatter than he used to be. And then all of a sudden, we see Fennec killing pretty much every single guard in that room, and then freeing one of the slave dancers. And then we finally see Boba Fett just come in, and then Bib Fortuna is like acting like he's happy to see him and thinking that he was dead this entire time. But then, like, Fett doesn't take any of it, and he just blatantly just shoots Bib Fortuna point blank and just throws him off the chair, and then just takes over the throne for himself, which leads into a nice badass shot between the Fett taking over the throne and Fennec just sitting right beside him.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess Boba Fett is now like a crime lord. I kind of wonder where they're going to take his plot line. I mean, because after that we get the teaser of something called the Book of Boba Fett, which. So is this the tease for the Boba Fett series, or is this like so people have kind of had speculations about this, like they're wondering if this is the tease for the series of Boba Fett, or if this is the tease for what could be season 3 of The Mandalorian, which would focus on Boba Fett.
I mean, it's still really early to speculate on what this really is. I mean, personally for me, I think this is a separate series, because I don't. If this were to be like a third season of the Mandalorian, then it would detract from, like, the big major storyline that they were hyping up, which is, of course, the war on Mandalore. And if they were to focus on Boba Fett, then we would wait maybe another year to see that story just play out. But I think
I will say I do kind of have I kind of see both sides, because, like, people did point out how the Boba Fett series was not one of the series that was shown off at the investor meeting. So I thought that was interesting that they didn't actually show that. So, like, that's the only thing that makes me think maybe it could be that they're doing that for season 3. But I guess maybe they just, for some other reason, just did not show the Boba Fett series yet when they had that meeting. But it could still happen. It could still just be like another spin-off show.
I did hear news that they were going to shoot both the Boba Fett series and the third season of The Mandalorian simultaneously. I mean, it makes sense if they're planning, because they announced season 3 for The Mandalorian for December of next year, but then the Book of Boba Fett also gets announced at for the same month, which which is not something that Disney Plus usually does. Is like air.
Yeah, that's gonna be a bit weird. Like they're both airing at the same
time.
Because
like I mean, we had like the final season of the Clone Wars early this year, and then we finally get the second season of the Mandalorian airing for this season, and now like, well, I guess like, you know, like next year on Disney Plus they're gonna be releasing a lot of other stuff on that streaming service, including like 2 to 3 MCU shows, and then they have Star Wars: The Bad Batch. They have another season of The Mandalorian, and now they have the Book of Boba Fett being announced. So I wouldn't put it past them to like to show that Disney Plus is really going to go all out with like all these new shows that they've been advertising, you know, for the past several years.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be a good way to sell Disney Plus, because, you know, as of right now, the only things really that I think people would be sold on with Disney Plus is like The Mandalorian and the MCU movies. You know, at least if they're going to have all these MCU shows and Star Wars shows, then yeah, people will probably definitely want to check out Disney Plus. But yeah, pretty much all the service has going for it at the moment is just Mandalorian and the MCU movies.
And let's not forget about like Ahsoka and the Rangers of the New Republic, whenever those are going to come out.
Well, yeah. Like, I mean, all the shows they've announced, like once they do come out on the service, I'm pretty sure that it'll finally like have a lot of reasons for people who want to actually subscribe. Like, but yeah, for now it's just kind of like it only has like a few things you might want out of it. But I'm sure once they have all these shows on there, it'll probably be like, you know, it'll actually grow with you know, it'll become a much bigger platform. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much where the season finale ends. It was probably, in my opinion, like it's probably one of the best things I've seen from Star Wars, literally since the prequels, because while I did like Rogue One, it was good, but it wasn't like amazing or anything. I think I definitely was more excited and liked The Mandalorian much better even before this. But the finale would just really cemented this as like, you know, just an amazing Star Wars.
I mean, Rogue One was not the best movie, but I think its premise set up a lot of stuff that, you know, that was used for The Mandalorian, including its world building for, you know, the Star Wars universe, because like the Star Wars, like all the Star Wars trilogies haven't really gone into the world building as much as it should have. I mean, of course,
it's mostly like the supplemental material, like, as I mean, the movies they hint at a lot of stuff and they set up a lot of things, and they you know, but it's really like the EU and what was at least the EU pretty much just built upon a lot of what the movies had, and that's, you know, what, you know, because Star Wars has always just had like so much lore to it, but a lot of it also comes from the EU.
Yeah, but yeah, overall, I think this is personally, I think this is the better season so far. Hopefully they'll probably one up this by next season, or maybe on their other spin-off shows. If I were to rate this if I were to rate this out of 10, I would give it maybe an 8, to be honest, because there were
like the whole season.
Because like season 1, it went on to the similar formula of like getting onto a weekly adventure sort of thing. Like Mando is like literally doing a favor for someone in order to get what he wants or something like that. And then there was like a couple episodes in particular, like episode 2, in which he had to take that frog lady over to one of the planets that he was trying to get to, which, I mean, it had some nice stuff, but you know, it's like it wasn't a really good episode, to be honest.
Yeah, 2 was definitely the weakest episode, but yeah, I would have to agree with that score. I'd definitely also give it an 8. It was for sure like a huge step up from the first season. Not that the first season was bad, like the first season was actually pretty damn good, like especially near the end. But this one just had a much stronger finale as well. And it did not, I feel like it also did not waste as much time as I felt like the first season might have at times. It really kind of like it definitely went more into the main plot line. Like, it was like a lot of what happened at least in the beginning of season 2. It was a lot more build up for what the main plot, what was going to be the main plot essentially. So and of course, I'm pretty sure everybody loved that there was so many characters from the original trilogy, and of course stuff like Clone Wars Rebels showing up, like Ahsoka, and Bo-Katan, and of course, as we all know, of course, the Luke Skywalker showing up. So I'm sure people also were just really excited to see those characters, and especially to see those characters finally come back. And that was probably like one of the main takeaways from The Mandalorian, was just those characters finally coming back in live action form.
Like this episode in particular is, like, I would say almost an official ending to the story arc that started back in episode 1. Now that we're no longer going to see like Din and Grogu together for the foreseeable future, which is kind of the disappointing thing.
It's a little bit questionable as to what the future really is going to be for the show. Like, I'm definitely agreeing that it's probably going to be the whole thing with the Mandalore, like the War for Mandalore and all that. I think that's where it's probably going. And whatever's going to happen with Boba Fett, it's kind of up in the air at the moment. So I don't know what they're really going to end up doing with them. But yeah, I don't know how good the show is going to be now that it really doesn't have like the relationship with Din and Grogu to kind of fall back on at times. So I kind of wonder what they're like how they're gonna manage with, like, I don't know, like, is Din just kind of going to be going at it solo from now on, or is he going to have people helping him out? Because I mean, as we know too, he also doesn't have the Razor Crest anymore. So like, I'm wondering also, like, how is he going to be getting around?
I mean, he could borrow one of the Mandalorian ships, I guess, but we don't know like what's gonna happen until we see season 3.
And also with Grogu as well. Like, I don't think he's going to be completely gone from the series. I think every now and again we might see scenes with Grogu.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation of like what happens to Grogu, because we know what happens to Luke Skywalker's Jedi Academy back in the
Well, that's another thing too. Like, I wonder if we're going to see Luke Skywalker's Jedi Temple, and him actually like training the other Jedi, and maybe of course him training Grogu. That I think people want to see that.
Yeah.
Too. So I think we'll probably see that.
Yeah, and maybe see a younger Ben Solo into the show, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna end up doing, unless like Filoni and Favreau have something planned up their sleeve.
Yeah, and I know like a lot of people are kind of like worried because they're like, well, this is all leading to the sequel trilogy. I try to keep an open mind. I try to come at it as like, I'm not really sure. I think if they're going to go with this world between worlds thing, then pretty much anything's possible. It could be like might actually just be another timeline. And they could just, if they're actually going to go through with that in the Ahsoka series, that, they're going to be doing World Between Worlds, and they're going to basically say maybe the sequel trilogy took place in another universe or another timeline. And if they do show Ben Solo, like, maybe it could be a different version of Ben Solo. Maybe it's not the Ben Solo that turns into Kylo Ren. Maybe he does something else. So, I mean, it also opens up the door for, like, if they do bring in some of the sequel trilogy characters, maybe they could do something else with them. Which I think would be interesting as well. Like, because in a way they could kind of redeem some of the sequel trilogy characters in that way as well. If they could, like, actually have Finn do something important. Maybe make Rey just a more developed character. They could. There's a lot they could do with that, I think.
Well, I mean, so far this season has hinted at a lot of stuff that that will happen in the upcoming seasons. Like, we have, like, they did hint at Grand Admiral Thrawn coming back, and then there's.
Yeah, that is one thing I will say I was a little bit disappointed with. Like, I was kind of hoping we'd get a tease at Thrawn, but no such luck, unfortunately. I guess they might just be saving that for Ahsoka at this point. When they have Thrawn show up.
But yeah.
So I don't know if you have anything else to really like say about this episode?
I thought this was like the best Star Wars that I've seen, like for a long time. I mean, like the sequel, the sequel movies were hit or miss. I mean, the last movie was a big miss in my opinion, and I was hoping, that this show would, possibly, redeem Star Wars, hopefully for the long run. I think, the show succeeded in what it needed to do.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think this is like the best Star Wars thing I've seen in years. Definitely, honestly, since the prequels. I like it's probably the like I said before, the most enthusiastic I've been about Star Wars, because I was looking forward to, every week I was looking forward to the next episode. I was, following all the theories about what they would do in each episode. I was also excited about what they would do. So like, I was, and they delivered as well. Like, it wasn't just like empty hype or anything, like where you were excited for something and they didn't really do anything with it. They actually, ended up doing something good. So, I mean, it's like, at least it wasn't just for nothing. Because I remember feeling that way about like the sequel trilogy, and I was like, oh god, what are they going to do with Snoke? Like, because that was the thing at Force Awakens. I was like, oh god, like Snoke, he seemed like such an interesting character, and that was another thing I was disappointed with, like with The Last Jedi. I was like, well, they just kind of essentially like threw Snoke away and didn't do anything else with him. And,
I'm hoping that they address the Snoke part, because a lot of people have speculated that with Dr. Pershing being a cloning scientist and all, I hope that they would really address that, but I guess they couldn't because of like what kind of story they wanted to tell it in this episode. So hopefully, I hope they bring back Dr. Pershing and of course Moff Gideon back for us to really find out their real motivations of what they were trying to do with Grogu in the first place.
Yeah, well, we did get some answers in regards to like what they were doing with the Dark Troopers, but there are still definitely some questions about like, because I don't think we were told everything. I think there's still stuff we didn't really get answered, and there's definitely still some loose plot threads with that. So they'll probably like address it in later seasons, I'm guessing. But yeah, so this is probably the best thing I have seen from Star Wars in years, and I'm really excited for what they're going to do next. But I will say, just, as long as Favreau and Filoni are to some extent involved with some of these, like, I'm all behind it. I will say there are some things I am still a little bit concerned about. I'm not going to totally say, I'm 100% on board with everything they're doing. I'm still going to proceed with caution, but I am definitely a little bit more optimistic than I was after this. Let's just see, after the Rise of Skywalker came out. Because at that point I was like, well, Star Wars is dead. Like, there's nowhere they can go from here. But somehow the Mandalorian has single-handedly like managed to revive this brand to some extent, and I hope that some of these other series can follow in its footsteps. And even if there is maybe a bad series that comes along, there'll be enough good series that'll like counterbalance it, and people will just kind of forget about the bad stuff, and they'll be like, well, we have all this other stuff that is actually good that we can go back to, so I hope it kind of continues in that way. We can only cross our fingers and hope that we do not continue to get disappointed as Star Wars fans, and that we just continue to get good stuff coming out of Star Wars, even if that has to just be in TV shows instead of new trilogies and all that. Maybe shows are just the future of this franchise at this point. Not that I'm opposed to new trilogies, but like I feel like it seems like so far like they're doing a pretty good job with just series. So I don't mind them just continuing to go that route.
there is that Rogue Squadron movie we're getting in theaters.
Yeah, the Rogue Squadron movie. Yeah, like I'm pretty excited for that too, because like I'm all for a Rogue Squadron movie. So, I mean, it's not going to be a trilogy either. It's just going to be like a movie. So, nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so I don't really have much else to say. This was definitely like one of the best things I've seen from Star Wars in a long time. And I think it's a really great way to end off the season.
Yeah, and well, we have to wait like an entire full year for the next season to come out. And we'll have to see.
But then we also have all these other things in the pipeline too, which we can.
Yeah, like we have Bad Batch. We have there's no like definite release date for all these other shows that they're doing. I do know that the new Cassian Andor series is confirmed for 2022, so that's a long ways out. But like so far as I know, Bad Batch is like the only notable show that's coming out in Star Wars show that's coming out in Disney Plus next year before the Mandalorian comes out.
Yeah. So we've got all that to look forward to. Like let's just hope they're actually good. But yeah, so that all being said, I guess until next time, we will see you all later.